Welcome to my sewing cottage. This is a little patio for Loki. We call it the patio, you know, for a pug. This is for when he needs to use his outdoor voice. You know, sometimes he's gotta bark. We always have to have a treat or two or three, otherwise nobody's getting anything done in here unless we do this. The cottage is a really peaceful place. It was created for guests, I think. It has a fully functioning kitchen. My computer is where the mini fridge would be, and then I covered the stove with that piece of wood I'll talk about later. It's divided with the sewing area on the right and the pattern area on the left, and the video carts goes in between. And so there's my sergers and iron back there, my main industrial machine I sew on camera. And then here is my pattern table with all of the works in progress underneath it. And then behind me is my tools and all my fabric. Those two doors go to a bathroom and a closet. And then here we are back at the front. I make a template of every office I've ever had, including our home. I know it's a lot of work sometimes, but once you make all the pieces, it's just so easy to move things around. And this time I used Procreate, which is a little more work to move the pieces around, but it offers a lot of options because I could save each layout and then go back to it and see if I like it better. All right, let's get into some details here. So this area is primarily my findings and notions area. This is where I'm gonna get all my snaps, hook and loop, everything for bag making, ribbons, every kind of notion I have besides thread is over here. And this is where I would install the snaps or mark my buttons and buttonholes. And then these drawers here, the top one holds Velcro and a couple of extra tools because I have a bunch of duplicates still. And then the stationery supplies are in this little left one here. They're all perfectly organized. And I don't know how I got so lucky, but these bottom four drawers hold file folders perfectly. So all of my patterns are in here now. Even the hanging style will work. I don't know why he designed it that way, but I'm thankful. So I stand at my computer. It fits here where the mini fridge would have been. So there was power back there, which is really nice. And I stand and edit here mostly. And I will sometimes sit on the chair just to rest while I'm skimming through video, making sure everything's okay. And then my last bit of findings are here. The top one's zippers, and then this one is elastics. And then in the bottom, I have the webbing and twill tape. They're all bundled and perfectly organized. At the hardware store, I saw pieces of butcher block that were perfect to frame, and then I set on top of the stove, which has also been deactivated. But this way, it gave me another working surface to plop things onto or maybe stage things. It just keeps my other surfaces cleaner. This is where you see me sitting and sewing on the live stream. I have it a little bit set up here so you can kind of see what it'll look like. And this is now my current streaming and sewing setup on my industrial. I now use a video cart, which I'm going to go over in a separate video, and I'm super happy with because it's very mobile, which you'll see in a second. And this is my sewing area. So here's my industrial. I have a little cart here with all of my like go-to supplies on it. And I just made sure it would easily slide out. Here is my iron. I use a wool felt mat and not an ironing board, so it's super stable. And you can see here I'm demonstrating that. I put one of those retractable key holders to hold my cords. And then my serger and my cover stitch sit here. This is a husky table, so you can adjust the height, and it has these drawers which are really nice. You can raise and lower this table, so you can stand at it or sit at it with this little crank. But I'm just going to tell you, if you like to sit ever, don't get the one with the drawers. I had to add a lot of lighting to the cottage. It didn't have very much, so I added some track lighting that has remote control dimmer switches. These lights cause too many shadows for my live stream. I'm mostly using them for ambient lighting. Like I mentioned before, I'm now using a cart for all of my video equipment. This solves a lot of issues for me. I only have to have 2 cameras. It gets rid of all the stands that the lights are on, which are easy to trip on, and they fall over really easily. And it also just makes a lot less equipment to manage in general, since I only have to have 1 set of it for each location that I'm using it. Before, I used to have a setup that would be static, so I had 4 cameras, 1 on every station, and I moved around. but it also made it limited in other ways, especially which kinds of cameras I could use. This lets me use higher quality cameras and lets me really refine the lighting. So I like that. I sort of enjoyed the process of trying to figure out how to create this cart, and I really love the result. So on the other side of the room, I have a bathroom and a little closet, and I'm still trying to get rid of things from having a factory and so many offices over the years, but it's happening. I have a printer on another filing cabinet that holds things for clients. This is a cool antique store find. I don't know. My mom has taught me always to pick up people's art because some little kid made it, and I thought this was really cool. Plus the spool holders holding that bar is pretty nifty. Now I have two other machines, a basic home machine that is used for zigzag stitches, which is the Bernina here. I put all of my sewing machine supplies in this drawer. And then the Juki above is my buttonholer. So now I have a dedicated machine just for buttonholes. I know, trust me. That's a dream come true for me too. My linen scraps are in these two drawers here. I have them separated since they're leftover from projects. I like having them for repairs and also for a special project I'm working on. These are all my muslin fabrics. So I have knit pieces, woven pieces, just lots of things for samples. And these are my knit leftovers. I have bra making supplies, rib knit, and pieces large enough to make underwear, but mostly those are leftovers from projects. And then now I have this little cabinet, and this has my quilting supplies, like pieces that are already pieced together and tiny scraps, plus some denim leftovers, maybe large enough for a pair of shorts, and some flannel scraps. Sometimes they're just really good to have for tutorials and things like that. Most of the exposed cubbies are just larger pieces of fabric. About 3 of them are my fabric stash for sewing garments I plan to make. My books are up there. And then here's all my little cutting and marking tools. And I also have interfacing and paper scraps in those drawers. And then the rest of my drawers are the canvas one on the top here, and then everything else are quilting scraps by color. This did not take as long as you'd think, and I very specifically folded them. It was a little fussy. I love how they are now. All of my large cone thread bias binding is on this DVD rack. And then under the table are all of my bins for like works in progress and things like that. And then my pattern drafting supplies are at the left of the table. This little wood thing is something I got from World Market a long time ago. It had like a lid that lifted up, and I just removed the lid. It had like a carved elephant on it, and I just tossed that because I really liked the way the cubbies were designed for my tools. So thank you so much for coming to my little studio tour. I'm a little shy about putting this out there. I know it's a little over the top. It's definitely over the top for me. I've never had a super cute sewing room, and I always see those cute studios. Can you please get in the bed? Thank you. The toenails and the snoring are some of the most edited things I have to edit out of videos now. So I really love being in this space. I never thought I'd be able to work at home again with our internet, and something shifted with our internet, so I'm able to fully do everything here, which has been so exciting. It took me about 7 months to set this up. I touched every tiny little thing I own, and I made sure I wanted it. And if it was a pen that had been used, I checked if it still had ink in it. And I'm pretty diligent about getting rid of things, but let me tell you, I was very selective about all of my things, and for the most part, I got to keep everything. I'm a big believer in using what I already had. I have a lot of hand-me-down furniture, and I have lots of things left from my factory, and I really don't want to have to buy anything. So the only furniture I had to buy were some of these cabinets, and that's only because my office mate gave me about a quarter of these, and I thought this would be a really great way to use what I have, and so I just ordered more to match them. And then that way I wasn't like starting off with something I didn't know the dimensions of. I already had an idea of what it could work. And getting my stuff to fit in them wasn't easy. I was very selective, like I said, but also just super organized, you know, folding everything so that it fit perfectly, using up all of the space inside the drawer so that I could fit as much as possible really helped. This is still a studio where I am working for other people, and if this was just my home sewing room, it would be very different. I probably would have a different table. If the video cart didn't have to be in here, I would get just a larger table, and I'd probably just rearrange my sewing machines a little bit. If I didn't have to film things, I would have more space and more flexibility. So I don't think that this is like the ideal configuration for a home sewing room. I tried so many different layouts, and just because of the video equipment, it really puts a constraint that's difficult to deal with, especially when it comes to lighting. Lighting is always one of the hardest things to deal with, and having a nice backdrop. So this is really nice that my backdrop looks pretty good in any angle that I'm at. That saves me a lot of space if I don't have to put something up or create something that is imaginary or, you know, just kind of a fake backdrop. So I'll likely have another video just all about my video cart. I know that's not for most of you, but I feel like it would be really nice to just be able to throw my setup out there into the world. It might help somebody. Certainly did not invent this idea. It did come to me organically a few years ago because of some constraints I was having, and I just thought maybe a mobile setup would work, and I was like, oh, but how would I deal with the electrical and all that? And then, you know, fast forward a few years, I was faced with doing that for other constraints. And so then when I started looking into it, it's a huge world of setting up video that way. And you know, a lot of people like do mobile events, like maybe they go to a wedding or whatever and film things. There's, you know, lots of different ways to do that. And I think seeing the perspective of someone who does instructional video is just not very well represented out there. The fact that I do picture-in-picture and I do overhead cameras and I use webcams is pretty specific. So I think that I'll do a little video about that. I think we all have technology issues, and it's really nice to see that other people can get frustrated with it as well. I certainly am no stranger to that, and you know, I may not have all the answers, but I eventually can figure something out. So hopefully that can help other people. So if you have any questions about any aspect of the studio and you want any answers, please feel free to ask. Like I said, it does feel really weird putting this out there in some ways. I've always wanted a cute little sewing studio, and this is the first time in my 40 years of sewing that I have one finally. And so I'm really, really thankful, and I really love that during the day, in one day, I can literally see a bobcat, a fox, turkeys, baby quail, the deer. It's just a gorgeous place that we live, and I'm really glad that I get to see even more of it now that I'm working home again. So thanks for coming to my studio tour, and happy sewing.